As the Detroit Lions get set to play against the Los Angeles Rams on primetime on Sunday, one thing has become more and more increasingly apparent to this podcaster. Matthew Stafford is in for a world of pain when he plays against his former team. We're going to talk about it, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. My friends, so far, ever since, the preseason officially came to an end, ever since roster cuts got, finalized and everything seems to now be full go, we're heading towards the regular season, I've spent a lot of time, just going over everything I can about the Rams and the Lions and this whole game that's coming up on primetime Sunday. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. And I will say this right now. The more I have looked at this game, again, like I said in my previous episode yesterday, I have come to a realization that this game has a great potential to be a runaway game. And I kind of hinted upon an idea, a concept, if you will, within that show. And in this show, I am going to expand upon it. Because I'm telling you this right now. Everybody wants to talk about Matthew Stafford, about how he's still a good quarterback, he's a great quarterback, and he's a guy you can never count out. And you know what? For the most part, I'll agree with that. If there's anything as a Lions fan we ought to know is that for the 12 years that Stafford was here, you could never count the Lions truly out of a game, really. Because Stafford is one of those guys that can somehow pull a magic rabbit out of his hat. And you kind of wonder sometimes how he's able to do it. But that does not mean Stafford is just, infallible in that regard. Stafford does have to have things kind of go his way in certain regards. Whether it's, players that are stepping up on his side of the ball or, the freaking defense that he's going up against, it completely takes a nap, it falls apart, whatever the case might be. And I saw a lot of comments in the last video that said, you know what, we hear what you're saying, you know what, we think that it's good what you're coming up with, but you just can't count out Stafford. And I'm like, you know what, I need to explain why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling in this regard, because I'm telling you guys this right now. I truly think that Stafford is in for a world of hurt come Sunday night. I truly do, because, again, the way I look at it is that, again, the Rams are coming into this game and they're very shorthanded in a number of spots, especially when we consider the comparison of the Lions with their roster. Again, the Lions don't have anybody that's suspended as far as we know yet. And other than, pretty much, I think, Kaminsky at this point, we don't really have any starters that have been put on IR, really. I mean, some people might want to talk about Mosley and maybe Badgley, but it's like, listen, we can clearly survive without those two guys. Kaminsky is another matter altogether. Kaminsky is a guy that does a lot of things for the Lions. So that, for me, is really the only major area where I think the Lions are truly at, a loss. But otherwise, the Lions are coming into this game almost damn near full strength. But the Rams, it's a completely different matter. Again, they don't have a starting left tackle coming into this game. Two of their starting offensive linemen are dealing with injury. They don't have their starting tight end playing. Plus, on top of that, they do have quite a lot of rookies that are going to be playing in this game. Now, that's not to say the Lions don't have rookies playing in this game, too. We clearly do. We're going to have two rookie cornerbacks that are playing against Matthew Stafford. And I definitely understand why some Lions fans are worried about that, because Stafford, being the wily, savvy vet that he is, will definitely try to take advantage of that. But again, there's a reason why I'm not worried about that. And I decided, like I said, to take that idea that I had in that previous episode and go even further down the rabbit hole, go even further in depth to try and explain to you guys why I think not only is Matthew Stafford going to have a hard time in this game, but I think Stafford is going to be spending almost more time on his backside and being completely pressured on all-out whatever than he is actually going to be able to get clean looks. Because let's think about this, folks. Let's take a look at the Rams' offensive line one more time. Again, like I said, they don't have a left tackle on their roster right now, so we have no idea who the hell's going to play there. Their left guard is Steve Avila. Their center is Jonah Jackson. Their right guard is Kevin Dotson. Their right tackle is Rob Havenstein. I decided that I was going to take a look at how not only the Rams' offensive line did in terms of pass and run blocking in 2023 for the total year, but also do that for the Lions' defensive line, and then go further down the rabbit hole and see how those units did in the wild card game. Because that's obviously where all this is being stemmed from, is what happened in the wild card game. So let's take a look at that information. When we take a look at the four guys that we actually do have information for the Rams offensive line, this is what you're going to see. For the left guard, Steve Avila, in 2023, he was tied for the 36th best guard in terms of pass protection. He was the 84th best run protection guard. For Jonah Jackson, since in 2023 he played guard as well, I kept it in the same parameter. His pass protection grade was ranked 50th best. His run protection grade was ranked 69th best. Then you get to Kevin Dotson. His pass protection grade was ranked 30th, and his run protection grade was the best in the league. It was number 1. Havenstein, the right tackle, his pass protection grade was 50th out of all tackles, and his run protection grade was 5th out of all tackles. Okay, so when you take a look at the Rams' offensive line from 2023, which, let's understand something here, 3 out of those 5 guys, with 2 of them being Jackson and the other one we don't know, were on the team last year. Avila, Dotson, Havenstein, and some of them guys have been there for, I think, maybe a year more than that. But the point of the matter is that if you take a look at those rankings, none, and I mean none of those guys' pass rankings is better than 30th. That ought to tell you something right there. The Rams' offensive line is horrible when it comes to pass protection. Not a single one of them had a grade of 70. That's bad. Now, on the right side of the formation, they have 2 really strong run protectors in Havenstein and Dotson. But we're not talking about the ability for the Rams to run the ball here. We're talking about the ability of the Rams to be able to, protect Stafford. So, okay, that's the Rams' offensive line from last year. Let's take a look at the Lions' offensive line in terms of what their current starters are going into this game and how they did last year. Obviously, we know the left defensive end is Hutch. The left defensive tackle is going to be McNeil. The right defensive tackle, if he's healthy, which I have a funny suspicion he's probably going to try and make a go of it, is Reeder. And then the right defensive end is going to be Davenport. Let's take a look at this. Hutch last year, his pass rush grade was a 91.2, was the 5th best in the NFL. His run defense grade, nowhere near as good. It was 59th in the NFL. And this is out of all the defensive ends, edge rushers, whatever you want to call them. Then we get to McNeil, and this is talking about defensive interior linemen. His pass rush grade was tied 22nd. His run defense grade was ranked 5th. Reeder was 15th in terms of pass rush, and his run defense grade was 10th. Then we get to Davenport. Davenport last year did not have a good year. He was ranked 112th out of all edge rushers in pass rush and 148th out of all edge rushers in run defense. Now, I know as soon as I say that, everybody's going to focus on Davenport and be like, holy crap, he sucked last year. And let's make no two qualms about it. He definitely did. But there is a huge amendment I have to add to this. Let's understand that when Davenport was with the Vikings, he was in a scheme that he's not used to running. Davenport played with the Saints prior to the Vikings, right? Well, would it be surprising to let you know that Davenport, when he was there with the Saints, was under Dennis Allen? Dennis Allen runs a 4-3 concept scheme for his defense. You want to know who the defensive coordinator of the Vikings has been the last 2 years? That's Brian Flores. Brian Flores runs a more of a 3-4 concept. Well, I can tell you this right now. For defensive ends, edge rushers, the concept is much different as far as gap assignments and everything else when you go from a 4-3 to a 3-4. So it's not something Davenport was used to. So I was like, okay here. Obviously, you know what Davenport did last year. It wasn't very good. But is that truly telling what he can do? So I was like, okay here, let's go back to when he was with the Saints. What was his best season with the Saints? His best season with the Saints was in 2021. He had 9 sacks that year. Take a wild guess what his grades were that year. He was the 12th best pass rusher that year, and he was the 19th best run defender out of all edge rushers. That's a significant damn difference from last year when he was in a scheme that does not fit what he's used to playing. And then let's also keep this in perspective. When Marcus Davenport had that year in 2021. Obviously, he was able to stay healthy, so that's still a big what if here. But he also had a lot of talent around him. You go back to that team for the Saints in 2021. Cameron Jordan, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Marshawn Lattimore, and then you also had Malcolm Jenkins. There's a lot of good players on that Saints defense in 2021. Let's take a look at what the Lions have this year. Hutch, McNeil, Reeder, you have Carlton Davis, you have Terrion Arnold, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch. I mean, you got a lot of good players on this defense. The point of the matter is that I think that by, Davenport getting back to the scheme that he's used to playing, plus being with coaches that, he's familiar with, Campbell and Glenn, and having all the talent around him, so long as he's able to stay healthy, I think Davenport could actually be a solid player on this defense. But again, it's going to depend on if he can stay healthy. But my whole point is this. Going back to the Lions' defensive line grades, especially for the pass rushing unit, every single one of our guys, obviously other than Davenport, is top 25 at their respective positions. From the left defensive end to the right defensive tackle, top 25 in terms of pass rushing capabilities. Whereas the best pass defender, for the Rams is only ranked 30th. That ought to really give you guys a huge measurement, a huge understanding of how big the gap is between how the Rams are able to protect Stafford versus who they're going to be going up against. There's a huge talent gap there. But that's only part of the equation here. I know this for a fact, that for Stafford, when he feels pressure or when he knows that there's going to be pressure, he's one of those quarterbacks that will definitely speed up his throws. So I then decided to say, okay, here, we need to take a look at this from another perspective here. What's the average time that Matthew Stafford is throwing when he's under pressure versus when he's kept clean? I went and I found this out. For Stafford, when he's under pressure, his average time to throw, he throws the ball in 3.03 seconds. That's second fastest in the league from last year. When he's kept clean, he gets the ball out on average in about 2.36 seconds. That's 8th fastest. That's pretty damn fast. It's pretty damn good. But I was like, you know what? This wouldn't be a true video if I didn't compare him to Goff. You want to know how Goff does under pressure in terms of getting rid of the ball and kept clean? This is going to really blow your mind. When Goff is under pressure, his average time to throw is the fastest in the NFL. It's 3.01 seconds. When he's kept clean, it's 2.33 seconds, which is 5th fastest. So Goff is actually faster than Stafford getting the ball out of his hands when both under pressure and kept clean. Now, I know Goff doesn't matter in this, but I just wanted to put that out there, kind of like a comparison there. So, keep in mind what I said about Stafford, with the 3.03 under pressure and the 2.36 when kept clean. I was like, okay, so that was last year. Now we're going to get to the point where we're going to talk about the actual game that happened last year in the wild card round. So who were the starters for the Rams last year on offensive line for that game? Obviously, it was Alaric Jackson, who's the guy that should be starting this game, but he's suspended. Steve Avila. Coleman Shelton was the starting center that game. He's no longer there. Kevin Dotson and Rob Havenstein. So pretty much, if Jackson wasn't suspended, the Rams would have all four of the guys that were in that game last year, other than the center because Jackson's filling in there. So then I said, okay, let's take a look at how each one of those linemen did in terms of their respective, positioning for grades amongst each other. So in a grading scale of 1 to 5. So take a look at this. In terms of pass protection and run protection, the left tackle Jackson, he was number 1 in pass protection. He was number 4 in run protection. Steve Avila was 5th in pass protection, 3rd in run protection. The center Coleman, 2nd in pass protection, 1st in run protection. Kevin Dotson was 3rd in pass protection, 2nd in run protection. And then Rob Havenstein, the right tackle, who's arguably the best player they've got on their offensive line right now, he was 4th in pass protection and 5th in run protection. So when you just take a look at the rankings right there, their best pass protector from last year is not playing. That's a big problem. Which you would think your left tackle is your best pass protector because, oh, that's right, he's the blind side. He should be your best pass pro guy. But notice the actual grades for how those guys did yet last year. Every single one of the guys, other than the left tackle, Jackson, was all sub 60. And one of them was sub 40. Again, that tells me something. That the pass protection for the Rams offensive line was trash. It was horrendous. So why in the hell then was Stafford considered to be behind a really good offensive line last year? I was able to figure that out because of the time that Stafford was getting the ball out of his hands. It's hard as hell to sack a quarterback when he's getting the ball out in less than 3 seconds on average. So if you're getting the ball out faster, I'm sorry, you can be as good of a defensive edge rusher, whatever you want, but if the ball's out of the quarterback's hand, you can't sack him. So I was like, okay, that's been kept in mind, that's been kept in perspective. So what was the Lions, defensive line group and their grades and their everything? Obviously last year, Hutch was there. Also we had McNeil. But the two guys that we did have filling in at left defensive tackle and right defensive end was Josh Pascal at the end, but we also had a guy named Tyson Alula. I hope I got that pronounced right, but I probably didn't. So, already there we got two different guys that are not going to be here as starters compared to last year, because obviously we know Davenport's going to take the place of Pascal, and Reeder's most likely going to take the place of Tyson. Let's take a look at how they did in that game. Oh, that's right. Aiden Hutchinson, 88.1. The best pass rusher that we had on our defense. No damn surprise there. But then when you take a look at his run defense grade, it was significantly less, but in terms of the overall group of 4, it was ranked 2nd. Then you get to Tyson. He was the worst in both categories. He was 4th in both pass rush and also in run defense. Okay, I can guarantee you that if you take a look at his actual grades, they're not going to be that bad now. And then you take a look at McNeil. Obviously, he was 2nd in pass rush. He was 3rd in run protection. And Pascal was 3rd in pass rush and 1st in run protection. So, okay here. What you're seeing there is that the Lions, in terms of actual quality of grades, was actually better than what the Rams had last year. And if you go back to that game, if I recall correctly, the Rams only ran the ball 16 times. So they were primarily trying to pass the ball. Okay, so if you then think about it from that perspective, how fast was Stafford getting the ball out in that game particularly? When he was under pressure, he was getting the ball out in literally if I recall correctly, I think it was 2.82 seconds. I could be wrong. but it was under pressure when he was kept clean, it was 2.52. So again, what you're talking about there is that Stafford, again, is getting the ball out relatively quickly. Whether it's under pressure or kept clean, he was getting the ball out in less than 3 seconds. So I was like, okay here. How was Stafford then so successful passing the ball against the Lions in that game? Because obviously Hutch was able to be a good influence in terms of pass rush, and so was McNeil. But yeah, we only got to Stafford in that game twice. So why in the hell was Stafford carving us the hell up in that game? The answer? Take a look at our starting cornerbacks from that game. That was Cameron Sutton and Kendall Vildor. Their grades for that game was a 55.7 for Sutton and a 45.1 for Vildor. I'm going to tell you this right now. Every single other defensive back, save one, had better grades in that game for us than Sutton and Vildor. That's how Stafford carved us up. It didn't matter that the Rams' offensive line was trash. It didn't matter that Hutch and McNeil were able to actually get pressure on Stafford. The problem was that since we couldn't cover the damn wide receivers and Higbee, Stafford was able to find guys that were open with quick, precise reads and throws. So then why am I saying now that I believe Stafford is going to be in for a painful night? Well, let me just ask you this question, folks. Is Carlton Davis a better corner than Cameron Sutton? That's a hell yes. Is Terrion Arnold a better corner than Kendall Vildor? That's another hell yes, considering the fact that Terrion Arnold is well ahead of Kendall Vildor on the freaking depth chart. So, okay, obviously we have better cornerbacks in terms of not only starters, but also in terms of depth this year. So that's better. But also, again, there's no starting left tackle for Matthew Stafford. The blind spot is completely wide open, and chances are it's going to be some rinky-dink guy that they throw in there for an emergency contingent. So already, that doesn't bode well for Stafford on that front. But then also think about this. Stafford doesn't have Higbee in this game. That was another thing that Stafford was able to take full advantage of in that game. While Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are out there running the intermediate and deep routes and whatever, and our cornerbacks can't cover them for crap, you have Higbee underneath that could also be a threat for underneath intermediate throws, which is what Stafford had. He had multiple levels and options to throw to in that game, which is how he was able to carve us up. But again, they're missing their best pass protecting guy. They don't have Higbee in this game. We've got better cornerbacks. We're still at home, and we have better guys that are on the forefront down linemen in terms of pass rushing capability. So yeah, when I say that Stafford is most likely going to be eating the turf a lot that game, I definitely mean it. I would not at all be surprised if the Lions were to get 4, 5, maybe even 6 sacks in this game. Because the way I look at it is that whoever the hell they do decide to put in at the left tackle is probably not going to be better than Davenport. Excuse me. And then obviously for Hutch, he's going up against an injured Havenstein who's got a foot problem. So Havenstein's going to be slower getting out of his sets. And then obviously McNeil's going up against, freaking Jonah Jackson. Those guys have probably gone at it and practiced multiple times. McNeil knows exactly how to beat Jackson. And Jackson, again, is dealing with a shoulder injury. So yeah, I truly believe that Stafford is going to have a long night. Stafford is going to be seeing Ford Field's turf quite intimately, so to speak. And if the Rams can't score, then all that means is that the Lions offense just has to beat the Rams defense. And again, if I recall correctly, the Rams defense is starting three defensive rookies. Jared Verse, Brandon Fisk, and I think one of them's a linebacker. So yeah, it does not bode well for the Rams. And it certainly does not bode well for Stafford. Again, I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm not trying to say that it's a guarantee, but it's like, dude, the more I kept looking at these numbers in the situation, I can't see a way that Sean McVay is going to keep Stafford safe in this game. Because Stafford can't get the ball out of his hands in less than 2 seconds. That's just not feasible. And they obviously have to run deeper routes down the field if they want to try and convert first downs. And you can't run the ball always to the right side or else the defense is going to pick up on that. So that's why I'm saying the Rams offense is coming in shorthanded and it's also coming in limited. But anyway, I'm going to end this episode here, and I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, please subscribe. But also, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom of the page, so that way you guys never miss any more content I push out. Also want to encourage y'all, please, share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the greater the channel has a reach, the greater the channel can spread, and the more people we're able to bring in. And with that being said, whether you're a loyal viewer or whether you just watched for the first time, I hope you all enjoyed the content. I hope you all are enjoying your Labor Day weekend. I hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.